Welcome to the Healthcare Security Cast, the podcast dedicated to healthcare security, safety, and emergency management. If you are involved with a healthcare security program or desire to be, this podcast is for you. Join the conversation as we discuss the issues that matter to healthcare security professionals while leveraging the expertise of healthcare security thought leaders and experts in personal development. And now, here's your host, Brian Hamilton.
Welcome to the Healthcare Security Cast. We are back and we are joined by Paul Sarnese for our second anniversary episode, episode 125. Now, before we get into this episode and before we get into this giveaway, what you can win and how you can win, I just want to take a moment to thank our sponsors and collaborators, starting with 3D Network Technology. 3D Network Technology, reliability is our core value. Visit www.3dnetworktechnology.com. And Genetec, delivering security strategies for healthcare. Visit genetec.com. Also, Access Communications, who is sponsoring our giveaway today, the Change Execution Group and 360 Life Transformations, Canadian Security, and Omnigo Software. So our giveaway today is a Pick Your Prize giveaway. So once entered, if you win, you'll be able to pick from a couple of prizes. So you have the choice of an Amazon gift card, an IAHSS membership, or a copy of Hospital and Healthcare Security if you're planning on studying for that CHPA. In order to win, text Sarnese, the name of our guest today, Sarnese, that's SARNESE, to 647-372-2042. That's 647-372-2042. And now, with all that being said, let's get into today's show. Welcome to the second anniversary episode of the Healthcare Security Cast. I have the pleasure of being joined by a friend of the show, special guest, Paul Sarnese. So Paul has joined us for episode 1. He joined us for the 1-year anniversary. So, I thought, why not have Paul come and share some knowledge with us and impart his wisdom for the second anniversary episode as well. So Paul, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure, Brian. I always enjoy speaking with you, and I learn from you every time we get together.
And likewise, I enjoy the conversations, and there's always some learning in there. As someone who's still boots on the ground and really in a healthcare facility, again, I've kind of shared with you, I do miss being in that environment. I really do love what I do now, but there are times where I miss that camaraderie of being in a healthcare facility and doing that problem solving as well.
It's understandable. We become a tight-knit group because we're leaning on each other every day to get through whatever obstacles we're facing that day or whatever challenges that are ahead of us. So it's I understand that. Totally understand where you're coming from.
For sure. Now, I'll open for anybody who may be spending the last couple of years under a rock and don't know who Paul Sarnese is. Again, for those who don't know, who is Paul Sarnese?
Thank you, Brian. Well, I'm the lucky husband of Kim and the lucky father of Alexandra and Nicholas. My daytime job is I am the Assistant Vice President for Safety, Security, and Emergency Management for Virtua Health in Marlton, New Jersey. I've been blessed to work with the organization for the last 20 years. I'm responsible for the overall environment of care. So I oversee safety, security, and the life safety, hazardous materials, all those different things. I also oversee maybe some non-traditional areas. I oversee our safe patient handling program. I also oversee our drug diversion program, our workplace violence, which obviously makes a lot of sense. And then I also oversee our retail gift shops. So all the gift shops that we have throughout our organization kind of roll up through me. For the next couple days, I guess the next 7 or 8 days, I'm the president of the International Association for Healthcare Security and Safety, and that's certainly been a great. Last year has just been a wonderful experience, and certainly the pinnacle or the highlight of my career this last year. Although it was incredibly challenging, professionally, kind of juggling some things, it was the most rewarding year I had in my career. And I mentioned my employer a moment ago, Virtua Health. I just have to give them a shout out because they really allowed me the flexibility and the time to put 110% into being the president of the association. And that's what it requires to do it the right way. Like anything, you get out what you put in. And, I know you, and I know the members of our association and the listeners of this podcast, we don't do anything halfway. We go in full throttle, 100% of our commitment, because that's who we are. We want to serve others. We want to improve our healthcare environments. We want to improve society. We want to make an impact on others and so forth. So in a nutshell, that's kind of who I am, at least for the next 8 days. That's who I am.
Awesome stuff. Now, the one thing too, and I don't think I've ever asked you this before, but when you were listing off everything that you're overseeing right now, I think it probably may have been easier for you to just list the things that you're not overseeing at Virtua at this point.
That's funny, Brian, not to cut you off, but you know what I forgot to I'm also responsible for environmental services. I forgot to mention that.
There we go. Right. So my question is, as a guy who, from my understanding, you started off with Virtua as a frontline security officer, and you've really worked your way up to where you're overseeing a lot of the programs in the facility. Like, what was kind of that evolution? How did, I can kind of see that career trajectory through the security department and leading that team and, incorporating some other things, but you have your hands in a lot of different areas. So what was kind of the evolution to you overseeing so much?
It's a great question. I think, I did start as a security officer, and I'm very inquisitive. I ask a lot of questions. And, you shared something with me, but your father told you, if you don't ask, the answer is always no, right?
Right.
So as a security officer, I remember saying to the director of the operating room, I would love to see what a procedure looks like in the operating room. And the answer was yes. I went to the cath lab director and said, I want to see a cath lab. I want to see what that looks like, a cardiac cath. The answer was yes. I said to our paramedics that were flying helicopters, I want to ride in that helicopter. What do I got to do to get in that helicopter? And so I always asked a lot of questions because I had this thirst for knowledge, and I've been blessed to be surrounded by people that were willing to spend time with me and show me things. And, I think in healthcare, it's a very unique industry because it's really the industry that takes so many people in so many different departments to collaborate to impact one patient. We have to work together. We have to all be in step. And it's really neat when you can see how housekeeping impacts throughput and impacts infection, and how food delivery impacts patient satisfaction, and how security from parking impacts patient satisfaction, and so forth and so on. We're all just so interconnected and interdependent, and we depend so much on each other to provide that safe environment and provide, a great service to our patients and our customers, and to provide positive outcomes. If we're not all in sync, that experience it may not be as good as it could be, or the environment may not be as clean and as healthy and safe and secure as it could be. We have to work together. So I think the healthcare environment kind of leads to that, because I haven't found anybody in healthcare that doesn't have a passion for helping others, that doesn't have a passion for making somebody else's life better, serving others. I think what we do is so impactful, so meaningful, and so purposeful, because we're seeing people on sometimes the worst days of their lives, and we have the ability to simply smile at them and give them hope, or to say with them, I do this all the time, and I'll see a patient being wheeled down the hallway in a stretcher or a wheelchair, and I say the same thing all the time. I look at them and I smile and I say, you're in great hands. The person who is pushing you right now is the best, and everybody here is working as hard as we can to take care of you. And I think, by asking a lot of questions young in my career, and having the support of people like Russ Jones and other leaders that I've had the pleasure of working with, I was afforded the opportunity to be exposed to a lot of things. So I love work. I love everything about environmental services. I love everything about plant operations and everything, because it's different in healthcare, and it's just so meaningful and so purposeful.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the other thing too that is a challenge for pretty much everyone right now is just, and again, I'm sure it's the case with you because you're overseeing so much of the operations in the hospital, is just getting the appropriate staffing levels just with the labor shortage right now.
Brian, that's our number one challenge right now. Unfortunately, there's just like this tsunami, so we're having the increase of our COVID patients. We're seeing still supply chain issues, but our number one issue in every department, in every organization that I've spoken to, I spoke to a hospital last week that 75% of the staff in the hospital was through FEMA and the National Guard because they couldn't staff the hospital. Yeah, the labor shortage, and one of my directors always says that the labor pool is very shallow, and it's really difficult to recruit people right now. It's every industry, but let's talk specifically about healthcare. We're still in the middle of a pandemic, so people are very concerned, and we're competing with, especially in the entry level positions, we're competing with the Walmarts and the other big box stores and the Amazons of the world that are paying the same hourly rates that we are, but you're not working in an environment where there's COVID or Omicron, or where you don't have to wear a respirator every day to work, or gloves and personal protective equipment. So we talked about the word unprecedented. That was probably one of the most used words over the last couple of years, right? This unprecedented pandemic. But the labor shortage right now is unprecedented, and unfortunately, a lot of economists predict that this is going to go into 2022, potentially for the rest of the decade. So it's really, there's a lot of thought about, we have to do things different. We have to recruit different, and we have to attract different, and we have to be more flexible. So there's a great commercial, and I don't know whose commercial it is, but it starts off where somebody's being interviewed and they say, I only want to work Tuesday and Thursday. And then somebody else is being interviewed and they say, I want to work 7 to 3 Monday through Friday. And by the way, I want you to pay for my college education. Oh, and my debt that I had from college. And the employer that's paying for this commercial says, you're all hired. That's where we have to be more flexible. If because the labor pool is so shallow, if there's a potential employee that could work one shift a week. Years ago, we might have said, no, I need you to work every day, 3 days, all 3 shifts. Today, we're saying, yes, I can give you 2 days a month. Yes, because of the challenges. And I think, again, for the entry level positions, the hourly rates, we're competing with others. And they don't have the risk necessarily associated with working in the healthcare arena. So we have to do something different. I mean, I meet with my team on a weekly basis, and I say the same thing over and over again. What we have to use to differentiate ourselves, because we're competing with others, is our culture and what we invest in our staff. The culture of the organization. Do we allow everybody to share their opinions? Is it inclusive? Is there diversity? Is there equality? Is there the ability to make an impact on your community? The answer has to be yes. If not, we're not going to attract employees to work for us. So the culture is really what I think has to set us apart. And then the other big thing is investing in the training and development and the future of the employee. If there's not a career path or an opportunity for education and training, or being exposed to different thought leaders, or something that may not be a traditionally in that role of being a food service employee, but that food service employee wants to be a physical therapist in 5 years. Well, we ought to say, yes, come work for us. I'll hook you up with the physical therapy department. You can spend a day with them, and you can learn what it's going to take to be a physical therapist. We have to say more. We have to say yes more and be more flexible in order to recruit people, because it's a challenge in every department, in every facility. And, speaking to our colleagues throughout the globe, it's not a North American issue. It's everywhere. It's in Dublin. It's in Kenya. It's all over the place. And, so we have to, as an industry, do something different. And I think, I'm not a human resources expert, but there has to be a change in how we recruit, how we onboard people. And when I say recruit, it's not posting a position and say, yes, we're hiring. That's not recruiting. We have to do something different. We have to be in the social media platforms. We have to be everywhere to kind of get the word out. And then we have to make the onboarding process easy for people. It can't be a month-long process, because while that person is waiting to hear for the next 2 weeks, they've already found another job. And I have a friend, I tell you this, I have a friend who unfortunately lost her job. And after a long number of years working in an industry, and I felt really bad for them. And I guess I must have had a sad tone in my voice. And they turned it around. They said, there couldn't be a better time to be looking for a job than right now.
Yeah, true.
And it just flipped my thought process 360 degrees. And he went on to say, is I can tell them what I want, when I want to work, if I want to work from home, if I want to travel. And I said, I never thought about it that way, but you're right. You're in the driver's seat right now. So yeah, it's impacting everybody, unfortunately, Brian, and we have to do things different. And from recruiting to the culture and the education, we have to adapt with the times.
No, absolutely. And just, yeah, to some of those points that you mentioned, you talk about having that career path. And I think you're the perfect example of that. So you're uniquely positioned to really show, you can start off in this role, but you have the ability to climb the ladder here. In terms of the culture, how do you really sell the culture to somebody who's never been in the organization? That seems like the challenging part to me.
Yeah, well, I love when candidates have done their homework and they can see the rewards or the awards that an organization had, from if it's being the best place to work or if it's the most wired or whatever it may be. I think you have to sell yourself, and you have to say this is an environment which will give you all the tools and every opportunity to succeed. We will help you with training and certification. If you want to stay focused on healthcare safety and security, this organization will support you by helping you with obtaining certifications and getting the IHS basic certification or the advanced certification or the supervisor certification. We have to do that. In healthcare security in particular, and really in all of the public safety arenas, I think because of what the United States has specifically gone through in the last couple of years with civil unrest, and not necessarily the strong bond we have with the law enforcement community of years past, it's even more difficult to attract people to that enforcement, type of job.
For sure.
So it's the intangibles that we have to sell, and then we have to walk the walk. With the first day, that employee comes in for orientation, they have to see us walking the walk, because we know they have opportunities down the street, and that opportunity could be paying 25 cents more an hour, and they're going to jump on it. So we have to be different, and it's the training, it's the education, it's collaborating, it's that open communication, and we know all about millennials as well, right? So there's generational differences in how we have to talk to people, and we have to always remember that whenever, and I say this to myself, because then I catch myself doing this quite often, is if I'm not explaining why we do something, the person is not going to buy in. Nobody's going to buy in unless they understand the why behind things. So I think all of those things can make are a differentiator when it comes to how we recruit and how we retain people. It's got to be the culture, and it's got to be us investing in the training and development and the growth of the individual.
No, absolutely. All very great points. Now, the other thing too, we were talking about this, a little bit more than a week ago, but you recently were able to grow your team a bit. And again, during a time where it's hospital budgets are limited in a lot of cases, the question that people, well, number one, people who are on the call with us, there's, you could see the faces. People were really surprised to hear, the amount of staffing complement that you were able to achieve. But I guess the question comes back to, how were you able to do that during this time?
So by working with a lot of people, including my boss, the chief nursing officer, our performance improvement department, our finance department, all of our the presidents of our hospitals that we have really did it by looking at data. So yes, we were successful in getting 95 full-time security officer positions approved. And we're a relatively big department. When we're fully staffed, our head count's about 267. So this 95 is going to be above that. And it was really looking at the number and the hours when we're performing, when patients that are either a threat to themselves or others require one-on-one observation. And we looked at patients that were classified as a safety sit, so somebody that may be pulling out some tubing versus somebody that's really an aggressive, violent, history of violent individual. And we started looking at what that cost the organization and the number of FTEs that it takes to provide that one-on-one observation. And we looked at retention, we looked at recruitment, we looked at job descriptions, and collectively we said security has the training in de-escalation. They have the training on how to do a room sweep. They have the training on restraints. They're very focused. We're very focused on customers. So I believe, and everybody was convinced that we would do a really good job of taking over that service. And it was approved. So we're in the process of everything was approved for calendar year 2022, and we're in the process of onboarding, recruiting, and onboarding 95 additional security officers that will help both provide the one-on-one observations, but also to support our growing campuses. So, it was really the data we looked at, and then it was collaborating with the right leaders, presenting the right data. And really, we put a very strong case together. And it was one of those things where I looked at it and I said, I'm not too optimistic on this one, but what a great project. What a great project we put together. And when it was presented, it was a slam dunk. It was a return on the investment to the organization. And at the same time, what a great message to send to our staff that's feeling, unfortunately, the increase in violence in all of our facilities. And we can say to our staff, we are increasing our security force by 95. You're going to see a significant improvement, or there's a significant increase in the number of officers that will be on each of the campuses. So it truly teamwork to get it done, a lot of data to get it done. But when we put that case together, we put it in an S-bar. And so this is the situation, this is the background, here's our assessment, here's our recommendation. And it was supported by the organization from the president and CEO down. And we know that we're going to make a dramatic impact on improving the safety of our environment, the environment for our staff as well as our patients. This is right in our wheelhouse as to what we perform.
Awesome. Now, I'm just curious too. Is there anybody on your team who played a significant role in helping you? Because again, I just think of everything that you're overseeing, and you're only one person. You're also the president of IHSS for the last year. So in terms of gathering all those analytics, getting all that data together, who on your team was really helpful in helping you pull all that information?
I have to tell you, my boss, Lisa, she was really driving it. But she collaborated with the other leaders in the organization. And then we're blessed. We have a department that's called our Performance Improvement Department. And they're Six Sigma black belts and certified project managers. And we were led by two great project managers, Camille and Ryan, that really, we met with them and said, this is the problem. This is what we want to come up with. What are the data points that you can pull from our electronic medical record? What are the data points that you can pull from our financials? They did the work. They reported the data back to us, and they were able to basically just say, okay, we've confirmed we know what the problem is now. And then this is what we propose to address it. And it was a team. It was not Paul Sarnese alone. It was 12 of us, if not more, that were working collaboratively to pull this project together.
No, that's awesome to have those kind of resources available.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the other person that I have to give a shout out to is we have a librarian by the name of Helen Ann who did a lot of research for us. We just called it Helen Ann. We want to look at one-on-one observations. We want to look at what data is out there, and she was able to really provide us with some good research, some through the International Association of Healthcare Security and Safety, and others, more kind of a clinical background. But We used all of that to put together the package that we presented to our senior leaders.
That's awesome. Now, I know someone who's listening to this conversation is thinking, I don't need 95 FTE. I just want to get a second officer. I just want to get a second officer 24/7. Right. So, and I guess just based on what you've seen in the data, and again, it's going to vary because every healthcare organization is different. But I guess just in terms of offering some advice, what are some of the things that you think would be worth them tracking if they're not tracking already to make that case?
Well, the one thing I want to say first is, in healthcare, we're used to speaking in SBAR. So I put together everything in SBAR. We just did it for adding another security officer at one of our outpatient clinics. We were successful in getting another full-time employee for that. But it was basically saying, here's the situation. The building's open from 6 to 5, but we only have an officer from 8 to whatever it may be, whatever the time may be. And we basically, you paint the picture. This is the situation. Also the data. So if there's an increase in incidents, if there's I really believe in employee opinion surveys, asking your employees once a year, every couple of years, questions like, have you used security in the last 12 months? Yes or no? If yes, were they timely, professional, courteous, and knowledgeable? What improvements would you like to see made? What are your suggestions for improvement? Our employees have a lot of knowledge. So if you don't have specific data, ask employees for data. They'll give it to you. At least you get that baseline, right? But incident reports, are you seeing an increase in combative patient injuries? There's a cost to that. There's a financial cost to that. There's a direct cost through workers' comp and medical bills. There's also indirect costs for replacement, where you can work with your occupational health or your third-party administrator to figure out what those financial data points are. What are our injuries costing us? There's also an OSHA calculator that you can plug in, and it will tell you that a back injury costs you $28,000 a year and a shoulder costs you $38,000 a year. But yeah, certainly increase in security-related incidents. Looking at the external environment, taking a 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 mile radius of that location and saying, yes, our crime index went from a 194 to a 495. Well, that's an issue. Speaking to the local police department, if that data is not readily available, looking at populations, there's so many different data points that we can look at. But certainly from a security perspective, it's really the documented incidents, thefts, assaults, criminal mischief, or property damage, because you can quantify all that. Now, we do a great job. We do our job when nothing happens, right? So we can't necessarily quantify what we prevent, but we can always make a case for when things are increasing or going in the wrong direction. We know that our presence, a physical presence of a security officer, or taking some technology like a access control to lock a door, or a camera to monitor a hallway, or a public view monitor, which I'm a huge fan of, to monitor an entrance. There's an impact on that. It's that psychological deterrent, but there could be a measurable impact. So we have to look at any data points that are available to us, pull all that data together, and like any of us, or like we all do, I should say, is sometimes you can use data to tell any story you want, right?
Yeah.
But it's true. But you use the data to support your position, and certainly have to collaborate with others. I rarely present anything by myself. I'm reaching out to Kathy, our chief nursing officer. I'm reaching out to Lauren, our attorney, or somebody in our risk management department or IT, and getting them to shoot holes through my idea. But if they say, this is really what we need to do, Paul, you're right on, then I include them in the presentation. So I love when I can say, when I do this all the time, is this is presented in collaboration with legal, risk management, nursing, plant operations, whoever it may be, because it's not now me. It's not just me asking, it's us asking. And it certainly lends for better success that way.
Right. And I think too, the one thing that is key there that you've kind of spelled out is the work of getting that approval, getting that buy-in is it's far before you actually get to that presentation, because you have so many stakeholders who you're bringing in. And again, I guess a lot of it comes with time and building those relationships and being able to have those conversations with those folks. And I think when we're less experienced, we think that we're going to have a great idea. We're going to come with all the data and people are just going to automatically accept it, which isn't necessarily the case. A lot of the work happens before you get to that stage.
Absolutely. Think about, and I'm sorry, his name is slipping, but the gentleman that climbed Mount Everest. Okay. Got all the press, got all the publicity and all the kudos. Do you know how many people it took for him to get up there? All the Sherpas and all the people that carried the backpacks and nothing happens by ourselves. Nothing great is accomplished by one person or one department. We need to collaborate with our colleagues to present our case and really put together a solid plan for what we believe we need to improve the environment for our patients and our employees.
No, and I think a lot of that's going to be helpful for people who are wanting to take that step of, again, getting that additional staffing and addressing some of those concerns.
And do the research. I mean, like you just, Google it. They're most likely somebody in our association, the International Association of Healthcare Security and Safety, has published something on it. So don't reinvent the wheel. Right now, I'll tell you what I'm working on. I have at one of our campuses, we have a behavioral health unit, and there are security officers assigned to that behavioral health unit 24/7. I'm proposing to pull our security officers out, give up the FTEs, give up the dollars, and turn those positions and dollars into a behavioral health tech or a technician.
Right.
And what I'm doing right now, and I'm with the help of my librarian, Helen Ann, is we're doing research to see if anybody's published any data or any research about the impact of security officers in a behavioral health unit. My personal opinion is I think that it automatically or instantaneously creates this custodial environment. When you walk into a healthcare facility, especially in a behavioral healthcare facility where people are experiencing a lot of crisis, they see a presence of a security officer. I think it creates this custodial mindset, almost in a correction officer type setting. So I'm doing research right now to see if anybody has studied it. Did anybody remove security from a behavioral health unit and see a decrease in aggression? Did they see the incidents go up? I'm under the belief that if we pull out our security officers, we put trained behavioral health technicians into that space who are therapeutic and can really help guide patients where we don't have that's not our background. We're not behavioral health specialists. I think it will make a calmer environment, more therapeutic for the patient, safer for the employees. So we're doing research right now to justify that position. And I'm working with a team of clinicians that think like I do. And I haven't been successful in finding anything out there yet. But we're going to continue to look, but we're going to do the same thing. We're going to look at data. We're going to look at the number of incidents. We're going to see if those incidents required an officer presence 24/7, or could it have been a responding officer that could have had the same intervention and had the same outcome.
Right.
Do we need to be there 24/7? And then, we're going to put that financial picture together too. And it's very rare. When I first proposed this idea, the person I'm collaborating with oversees that behavioral health department, and he shook his head. He said, nobody's ever offered to give up employees. Most people want more. And I'm saying, no, I'll give them up. I'll give them to you. I'll give you those hours, those officers, and those dollars to hire people trained in that setting that could be more therapeutic for our patients. We can find other posts and other locations for those officers. So that's kind of how I approach anything that I want to suggest change to. Collaborate with others, do the research, look for the data that supports your position, and then really allow others to shoot holes through it once it's done. What are the weaknesses, and what questions will come up? Because 100% of the time somebody's finding a typo that I missed. 100% of the time somebody has a question and I go, Never thought about that. So I think we have to have tough skin and share those ideas with others, and really, have it vetted out before we present it to any senior leader for their opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, with that specific example, because I've seen this in other environments where you have that security professional who transitions to a behavioral health technician. Again, I know a lot of that's based on skill set, but in, I guess, where you're located, is there a specific training program for a behavioral health technician that's very different from security, or do you see a situation where some of those folks are going to be able to make that transition and still be able to have that impact?
Yeah, we have some outstanding officers that that are being recruited for those behavioral health technician positions, and being recruited by other behavioral health departments. I think it's more of the therapeutic side that the behavioral health specialist has the training on. Our officers understand the verbal and physical warning signs. They know how to verbally de-escalate. They know the advanced physical techniques to protect themselves and others. But I've been at this for 35 years. I could not articulate the difference between being schizophrenic and being manic and being, and so forth. I don't have that clinical background that I think will provide more of a therapeutic environment and better treatment and better outcomes for our patients.
Oh, absolutely. All right. So you kind of stole the last question that I was going to ask you with that is, what you're working on. So you've already, you've already kind of went there, but now, as we're going into 2022, what are kind of your plans? I know it's going to be a bit of a different year for you, but what are you kind of shifting your focus to in 2022?
I plan on focusing a lot of my time and attention on workplace violence. Right now we have the new Joint Commission standards that came out, and it's looking at, most organizations have had a workplace violence prevention program for a number of years. So they have a committee established. They're looking at data. They're training staff on de-escalation. They're doing physical assessments of their environment, and some type of a cadence at looking for lighting and surveillance and access and emergency communication and staffing and training. They're looking at all those things. I think the new Joint Commission standards and some of the really, and what the data is telling us is there was a significant increase from 2019 to 2020 with employees injured by our patients, combative patients. And we saw that in my organization, like every other organization. And we need to look at things different. COVID, for many of us, really threw us a curveball because we stopped doing hands-on training.
Right.
Some training does not transition well to online. So I think a course on verbal de-escalation, that could translate online. How to get out of a wrist grab, a hair pull, a bite, a choke, how to hold somebody while restraints are applied, how to safely escort somebody from point A to point B. That doesn't translate well in the virtual world, because it's muscles. You actually have to practice with your muscles. So we need to come up with different ways to provide our staff that training. We also, with the Joint Commission standards, it also now allows you to determine, based on risk, what training employees receive. So we as an organization could say all 15,000 employees, you're going to get basic training on verbal de-escalation. But those of you that work as observers, security officers in the ED, behavioral health, or you're a nurse, we want you to get both the verbal de-escalation, but also the physical training as well. So I think this is just a great opportunity for us to look at our violence prevention program set of fresh eyes, and reinvigorate it to really meet the organization's needs. So that's really what I plan on doing in 2022, is really focusing my efforts on workplace violence. In virtue of, I'm blessed, our president and CEO, Dennis Pullen, his number one priority is employee colleague safety. And he and I just met the increase in violent incidents, not only in our organization, but throughout the world. And I have his commitment to move forward and do whatever we need to do to improve our program. So that certainly energized me even more to know I have that level of support to really focus a lot of time and energy on that one subject.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, Again, as we start to wrap up, because I'm just looking at the time here and I feel like we actually just started talking, but again, and every conversation I have with you, it's like this, the time just, I don't know where the time goes. Again, it goes by so quick, but do you have a special message you'd like to share with the healthcare security cast community, as we go into 2022?
Absolutely. Be optimistic. First of all, Brian, thank you for putting this podcast together. You're making a dramatic impact on this industry and our profession. I listen to every one of the podcasts, like most, and this is just a great forum to share leading practices and challenges and maybe some failures along the way. But my message is really, we're going to continue as a profession to prove just how resilient we are, just how courageous we are. We're going to have more challenges, more obstacles that we have to overcome. COVID's just one of them. So we just need to continue to doing what we're doing, and that is investing in ourselves, investing in our staff, and really supporting the organization by providing that safe and secure environment where we can provide outstanding healthcare to the people that we take care of. I think 2022 is something we should all be looking forward to with in a very optimistic way. COVID is going to be here for a little bit. It's how we approach things, So in the addiction world, there's the 3 C's. I didn't cause the issue. I can't cure the issue, right? And I can't control the issue. I didn't cause COVID. I can't cure COVID, but it's how I react to it, right? This is going to be here for a while. The labor shortages are going to be here for a while. We just have to embrace the fact that this is the new norm, and we have to come up with different ways of doing business. And to me, that's exciting. When you start thinking about how am I going to do something different? And you have to really do your homework. You have to really research. You have to think different. To me, that's exciting, because the same old way of doing things is boring. And it's that saying about the true definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. We have to do things different, and I think we are up for it as a profession and as an industry. We've proven it over and over again, and we're going to continue to prove it in the future.
Right, and at the risk of making it a buzzword, after an unprecedented, I won't even say year at this point. It's basically been unprecedented 2 years almost.
Yes.
What is the one thing? And I'm going to kind of challenge you to shift your thinking a little bit. Obviously a difficult time, but what is one thing that you can say was really, a win for you in the last year? What is something that's been a benefit of going through all of this?
For me personally and professionally, I think it was how we elevated the position of safety, security, and emergency management. Personally, I led a team of 68 vice presidents and up, and I was leading the team. I was directing where our mission was, where our objectives were, what the data points we were looking at, and obviously with a lot of input from a lot of folks. But I think I know that how we as individuals that were in the safety, security, emergency management role, and as an industry, I think the pandemic gave us a beautiful opportunity to just demonstrate the value we bring to the organizations that we serve and the industry as a whole. It really did elevate us because we have expertise that others in the organization don't have. And to see others recognize that was truly, it was pretty remarkable.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there, Paul. As always, I appreciate the time. If you're not connected to Paul Sarnese already and you're using LinkedIn and you're listening to the sound of our voice right now, I encourage you to connect with Paul. If this is your first time hearing him speak, obviously a great resource. And, I can say personally, a great colleague and great friend as well. So definitely take the time to connect with him. Paul, anything else you want to share before we end off?
Oh, I just want to thank you again for this opportunity. I want to wish you the best in 2022 as you become the president of the International Association for Healthcare Security and Safety. I loved the year that I had. But I am thrilled and so excited for you, Brian, and everything that you're going to accomplish. And no, just thank you again. I thank you for your friendship and your guidance over the last couple of years, and I'll continue to look forward to working with you and listening to your podcast every time you put one out.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Paul. Thanks for setting the stage. And and again, like I say countless times, it's always tough to follow Paul Sarnese, but again, I'll do what I can. I'm looking forward to this year as well. The great thing is, again, following yourself and Roy Williams and some people who've really done a great job leading the association. I have the model, at the very least. I have the model of what is to be expected. So again, thank you for that.
My pleasure. Thank you.
The Healthcare Security Cast is available on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music and Audible, and many other platforms as well. Check out our link tree on your computer or mobile device. And this can be found at linktree/Brian Hamilton. That's linktr.ee/Brian, BRINE, Hamilton. Again, that's linktr.ee/Brian Hamilton. Or if it's easier, send me a text at 647-372-2042. That's 647-372-2042. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have or share any links you may be looking for. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, take care and stay safe.